It's shining through the light in you. It shines so true. The light in you. Easy living, slipping out the back door. But it's not what you're made for, and there's nothing that is too late for.